Good night, viewers. Welcome to Ikemba's Youth for Reparation television program here on NCN. Of course, we normally would have this program every second Thursday, but there's been some slight changes, maybe it happening today on Friday, the 12th of March. So, of course, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to have a nice discussion to you today. Of course, our topic, our focus, reparations. But we're going to start off with a video, which is going to set the tone of our conversation. But for persons who are now joining in for the first time, looking at this television program, Ikemba Youth for Reparation television program focuses on reparations. It focuses on the time of the enslavement of people of African descent. Of course, Black consciousness, African young people, not only in Guyana, but across the world. So stay tuned, enjoy this program, and let's start off with that first video and get straight into the discussion. And also, I have some beautiful, strong, and intelligent young people to introduce you to who's going to, of course, guide me and help me along with this discussion. So let's start with that first video, and then we'll continue.
What does reparations look like to you?
Something that we ain't never gonna get. We ain't never gonna get it.
What could reparations look like today?
Whew. That's a tough one.
What could reparations look like today?
You mean like at all? We don't have any reparations.
Reparations are going to be an ongoing generational process.
I have a hard time even grasping the notion that that would happen in my lifetime.
What could reparations look like today?
We deserve reparations. I just don't have any idea what form they should take.
I feel like people's needs are going to be different.
Should be multiple choice.
Mine is free Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, and Taco Bell for the rest of my life.
Okay. They should let Black people get Jordans for free.
Chicken. Buckets of fried chicken, stock and just Tyson's. Like, no, we own Tyson's now.
Reparations could be really creative.
I have a lot of friends around the world, but I've never been out of the United States.
America is so ghetto, the only thing I want to do is leave.
Can I have unlimited flights?
A trip to Senegal.
First class.
A house in Miami, a vacation home in New York. I want to buy me an island, have a plane to fly to the island.
And what would you be wearing?
Probably a bikini.
There can be no conversation about peace, love, unity without reparation.
Secular humanism is a good model. Just equity, fairness.
This equality thing that they're pushing just ain't enough.
I'm trying to move away from equality, I guess, as a concept because equality still brings about unequitable outcomes for Black people specifically.
In the race, some people, they're way far ahead.
We don't have inherited wealth.
It is absolutely possible to do reparations currently for things that were promised 150 years ago.
Slave owners received it.
They got $300 per slave.
If we were to go look at the great-great-great-great-grandson of the person that owned the diamond plantation, how much money does that kid have?
The 40 acres and a mule type thing, I did read an article, and today that would look like roughly 40 to 60,000 per person.
I want 40 acres and a mule, and I mean that. The mule can be cash, but I truly want the land.
I want land.
Give me land.
How many acres we talking?
How many acres you want?
I want 100, bare minimum.
I would say something where I can give back to my kids.
My entire family lived in the projects. I knew nothing about home ownership. Your circumstances are not going to be your future or your forever.
What could reparations look like today?
I mean, money.
Some cold, hard cash.
If you're any type of Black, you should get paid.
The way that Native Americans get checks from the government, I feel like Black people should too.
Put $300K in my account.
Somewhere around $2 million per Black person.
Maybe you give every Black person $1 million. That's still not going to do anything for the systemic oppression that happens educationally, in the job force, et cetera, et cetera.
What could reparations look like today?
Listening when someone says, my life is being threatened.
Knowing that I can call the police and actually get help and not fear dying.
What are all the things that I just don't have access to? Like walking down the street without being perceived as dangerous.
If I'm able to do that without the stigma or the profiling, I'm good.
I feel like we should just be given space.
I don't know that anybody has to give me a dime. Just mind your business.
What could reparations look like today?
We had some deep-seated issues.
Because there's so much layers to our struggle.
Reparations has to go to a soul level and be spiritual and be more mental.
I feel like reparations is more like self-empowerment.
Freedom.
Respect.
To just be treated like I am meant to be somebody, like I am somebody.
I just need you to acknowledge that this has happened.
The oppressors admitting that they oppressed.
What do your reparations look like?
I think any reparations that we receive, we have to make for ourselves. Those are how you get your reparations. You earn your reparations, you take them back.
Taking shares from companies and corporations that have profited from the labor of slaves.
In addition to the labor stolen, there was a lot of psychological trauma.
Mental health counseling.
Education.
Education access.
Growing up, when my dad would get frustrated, he would say, you know, black children shouldn't have to pay for books, not for school, not for college, not for anything.
Actually investing in public schools. Not being okay with anyone ever being homeless. Those are reparations to me because those actually make a equitable society.
Black people should be tax exempt.
Don't have to pay property taxes. That'd be great.
Reverse gentrification if possible.
Free housing.
What does reparations look like to you?
Good community-based involvement.
Investing in the black community.
More local controlled banks.
You have different programs to help encourage small businesses.
More mentorship. I call it almost collaborative economics. Maybe you're trading services and maybe you're providing your time and like how you show up.
I really would like to get into the oil business.
Let's give every black woman a doula and a lactation consultant.
Supporting folks that are currently in the justice system.
Got to dismantle the prison industrial complex. That in and of itself will upend capitalism the way that we know it.
What could reparations look like today?
Literally looks like redistribution of all of the excess that white people have.
White people need to shift.
It's removing old white people of power and putting back folks
that look like us, that legislate,
integrate,
redesign,
redistribute,
communicate.
I mean, we're talking about structural damage that has happened inside of communities.
The total disruption of everything.
A new nation.
Dismantling this entire system.
And starting from scratch.
Quite literally, people giving up their homes, their assets, all of their resources to people who are the most disenfranchised.
It's got to be something that honestly is uncomfortable, because getting here wasn't comfortable.
What does reparations look like to you? You know, that are the answers that you'd get from the average person who maybe not study this whole topic of reparations and what it should be. But how do you see reparations? So to get into this discussion, to get some more point of views besides the persons you saw in this video, and of course besides myself, I'd like to now to introduce you to my panel. We start first with my immediate right, Shonit Day, who is the mobilization officer of Ikemba. And I'll allow everybody to, of course, to give their own bit about themselves as we go on. We have Okemi Bitten, who is the second vice president of Ikemba. Now we have Crystal Crawford, who's a very strong and powerful advocate and known as a poet also, been working along with the Reparations Committee. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. So we can get into the discussion. But before we get into the discussion, is there anything you want to say about yourself?
Oh, no.
No. We'll get into that discussion too. So right into the discussion. What does reparations look like to you? Coming off from that video, we heard a lot of things. We heard a lot about bucket of chickens. We heard about money. We heard about 20 acres and a mule and all this kind of thing. What does reparations look like to you? Who wants to start?
I think I could probably start. I mean, stemming from the video, we've seen that the average person on the street perception is that, oh, we're getting money, we're getting land. But a lot of persons aren't focusing on the repair, the mental, the psychological aspect of reparation and what it means to be black and developing the black community. So what essentially reparations would mean to me is changing that whole mind frame that black, nothing good can come from being black. Reparations mean changing the way we see the education system, the way persons learn about their self and their own black consciousness. I mean, for me, just about 5 years ago, if you asked me where we came from, my response would basically be a secondary school response. We came from Africa, we came on a ship, we came to the Caribbean to work on the plantations. But as I got into the reparations movement and as I became a part of Ikemba, I learned that we were kings and queens before. We had schools before. We had colleges. We had funds. We were a powerful people. So I think unless you realize that there is so much power within you and within that melanin, I think that's where the reparation starts for me and where the repair can start.
Good. So as Okemi said, the reparations, how it looked to him is to talk about psychological repair. And, even when you look at the 10-point plan for the curriculum reparative justice, there is a point that speaks to psychological rehabilitation. That is something that we are requesting as advocates for reparations. Let's go on. Who else would continue in the back?
I think you read my mind, because when I think of reparations, I think of self-repair. In order for us to move forward, we have to repair ourselves. No, reparations for me is bigger than just wearing her hair out and, you know, wearing a print at emancipation, and then we forget about it, and next year we continue about that. Reparations for me is looking at a history book and not just seeing my ancestors as slaves, you know, seeing them as the kings and queens that they are and they were, you know. Reparations for me is more than just chicken, like he said in the video, which was funny, and money. It's more than that. It's the rebuilding of oneself, and if we can rebuild ourselves, we can build our family. Family is the foundation of society, and if we can build that, we can go forward and be repaired as a people.
And what I'm getting out from what you're saying, Crystal, you talk about identity, that sense of identity.
Yes.
I know, because when we come, we didn't, as I said, our history books in school, we were taught people to come together.
We were the first.
But the thing is that we didn't come. We were brought. We were brought with shackles and chains, you know. So, you know, what are reparations? Identity, of course, is very important, you know, and that sense of identity. You know, it's always important to know that, to be able to know who is your mother and who is your father. Same goes to knowing where you came from, what part of Africa. I just want to know, come from Africa, am I Igbo, am I Zulu? You know, it's important to know these small details.
If I could add,
yes,
based on what you said, I remember I visited the National Archives, and I was sitting there waiting for my research, and there was this the book with the Indian immigrants, the names, where they came from, plantation allotted to their what do you call it, their tribe and all of these things. And immediately I became so, you know, angry. I became sad, because where am I, you know, where's my history?
Where's your history?
Where, I don't know which plantation I was allotted to. What is my name? My name is Crawford, but that's not my name. That's the name given to me. So reparations for me is bigger than just giving us money. It's giving us the identity, or we find it for ourselves, you know?
That is true.
More so about the identity, but us accepting our history. I think a lot of African youth find it difficult to accept that we were once slaves. And in accepting that, well, you know what I mean?
Yes.
that we were brought here to work as slaves. And the dismay of saying, you know what, that's them, this is no, I'm not identifying myself with that. But I believe if you accept your past, you have a better chance of preparing yourself better with understanding that that isn't your only past. You were brought, as my colleague said, we came from kings and queens. We came from a civilization of great wealth and great knowledge, and with, again, identity and accepting that we are a part of something great. And if we only get the reparatory justice that we need, again, banking on psychological, because we know we had a discussion a while back on financial literacy and how our African brothers and sisters still find it difficult to maintain finances once given to them, because you know, as fast as you get money in your hands, their first thought is, oh God, let me go buy this, let me go and get that because I need this. We want our African brothers and sisters to reach to the point where money is not how can I put it, like a focal point. It is needed, but for them to have it and know that it can be invested, or it can be, you know, distributed or given.
Must come at a plan.
Yes.
Must come, and of course, you know, getting from what you're saying there, when we look at our history, most times when African people, African youth, even to some seniors look at our history, the first thing comes to mind is enslavement, that period. We don't see before that, but we just see that we were enslaved, we were whipped, we were castrated, we were, you know, brought to the plantations. But our history started long before then. Sadly, that is what has been recorded, not by us. And it's been said, you know, to prove wrong. And I just want to put out a point out there when we talk about what does reparations look like today. Now, for persons who want to get more insights, the CARICOM has put out a whole 10-point plan that shows the different points, 10 points that we are, as advocates, are asking for. And the first point starts with a full and formal apology. If the persons who, or would say the persons who have been benefited from their ancestors, who would have enslaved us, do not accept the wrongs of their ancestors, then nothing will be done about it. So it's very important for us to take that into consideration. The first point speaks of full and formal apology. Accept your wrongs. Now, continuing the conversation on, you know, what does it look like to you today? Do you believe that reparations should be important to young people, and why?
Oh, definitely. Why? Because, okay, one thing while I was discussing with some friends, why as young people we find necessary to leave Guyana to study? Why are we traveling to our oppressors to be educated when we should be in our own country, getting our own funds, doing our own projects, and elevating our own country? It's more than just sitting and having to talk about reparations, but actually seeing your plans, your thoughts, your development for your country. Them giving what we deserve is us doing what we need to do to develop our communities.
You know, I get that sense, you know, that we are being, what should I say, subject to the help of others, whereby we came from a land whereby it has everything. We know that Africa has the most resources in the world, but yet still we don't benefit from it. And we actually have, like, for example, for you to get to Africa, you have to get permission from the third world country. You either have to have a visa for America or to Britain, the United Kingdom. So you still have to ask permission to go back home, which is a sad fact. What's your take on it, Ukemi?
I think the answer to that question is not as simple as we make it out to be. For me, personally, I think young people, we have a moral obligation to our ancestors. They paved the way for what we can achieve right now. They went through hardships, they went through difficult and trying times so that we could sit here and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy today. So I think the onus is on us young people to actually defend what they fought for and continue to struggle for what they would have struggled for. I think that conviction of itself, that's strong enough for any young person to actually fight or try to advocate for reparations. And I think education is important because as you get educated about it, the passion develops. And as the passion develops, you get more and more, the conviction becomes stronger. So I think at least young people, once you get the education, the onus will become sort of embedded in you to try to defend what your ancestors would have worked for.
And I got two things from that. Of course, honoring what your ancestors have done for you.
Yes.
If our ancestors did not do what they did, we might not be able to even sit in these chairs right about now and defend have such a conversation. So we have to honor them because, you know, when I say, well, they did what they did, we have to live our lives. But then again, if they did not sacrifice their lives, their time, their effort, we would not be in this position that we are in today. And also education. Because if you're not knowledgeable about something, if you do not know how something actually affects you, then you would not be inclined to be a part of it. But when you understand, look, for example, you know that it's because you knocked your feet 4 years ago means the reason you're getting the pain when rainfall. Then you understand the repercussions of, you know, knocking your feet and, you know, avoiding such accidents.
Yeah, I think what's important also, Kibwe, if I may interject, a lot of persons don't know that their health benefits that plague the Caribbean today as a society that stemmed from the period of enslavement. And I think it's that lack of knowledge that creates that sort of disconnect between young persons and the reparations, because the first contention that you might come to is that it happened 400 years ago. How does that impact me today? But when you do get down to the facts of the situation, you realize that these things are impacting us every single day of our lives, and we're still feeling the brunt force of enslavement. So I think once you recognize that, then the young persons would be in a better position to champion the cause as we are championing the cause.
And moving straight to Crystal, just before you say, just imagine being locked up, when somebody's locked up for about, let's say 50 years in prison. When they come out of prison, they're not the same person. Imagine 400 years of being captive, generation to generation. Crystal, what is your take on?
I think Africans, or not just Africans, young people should know and understand that Africans and their descendants are the forerunners, or were the forerunners of human civilization, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and we should come to the realization that, you know, we deserve this. And I think with reparations now, we should be able to access scholarships, we should be able to challenge ourselves and to make the use of our potential, make best use of our gifts and our talents, bring it to forth. Why should I be struggling for basic education, food, and all of these things? This is basic human rights, basic human rights, and we are entitled to that because of what our ancestors went through. So these are things that reparations should be fighting for, and I know that Ikemba and so on, they're enlightening and teaching other young people to know and come to the realization of those things. So kudos to you guys.
Yes, and you know, I like that you made that point because
Yeah.
it's important for us to understand that, you know, these are basic things that we as human beings, not half man, half beast, as they told us when we were enslaved,
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah.
You know, the opportunities to the universities across the world.
Yep.
We don't have these opportunities, and we can't play a blind eye to the fact that
Yeah.
being an African person limits you. Not because we are limited, not us limited, but society, the system that's been set was not set for us, even though we helped to build most of the systems across the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Because
So, piggybacking on that, you just,
Mhm.
I know, of course, in some way you guys would have answered this, but I want to make it very bold. It is true that a lot of young people, a lot of people are not so inclined when it comes to reparations. Why do you think that is so? Anybody can start.
For one discussion I had with some youths, I was told that I'm reminding them about slavery. And it is not something that they want to discuss. As Okemi alluded to earlier, they don't have the morals or the values to recognize that their ancestors made it possible, that they can blatantly say, we don't have time with slavery. And so as I said, it's more than just the surface area of it. Young people need to be educated on more than just why reparatory justice, but the fight to get to reparatory justice.
And what reparatory justice can do for you.
Yes.
You know, we see ourselves in this present state and we say, you know what, maybe if I win the lotto, life's going to change for me. Or maybe if some old grandfather or somebody who didn't know died and inherit some big amount of land, that's not going to happen. Reparatory justice is going to give you back what your ancestors had for you, your land, your money. We worked for free. You know, we were enslaved. Our identity was stripped from us. Our family was stripped from us. Our names were stripped from us. My name is Kebe Konoto Kuplan. The first two is African, but the last name, of course, I inherited from my slave master. Okemi.
Kebe, that's a very interesting question. I think why a lot of young people would try to stray away or do not pay mind to reparations, as Shawnette would have alluded to earlier, it's because it's our knowledge in Guyana starts at a point of depression and enslavement. What happens to us when something bad happens in our life? We try to repress that memory, we try to forget that memory and put it in a corner. And so I think a lot of persons don't want to go to the point of slavery. And that's the perception that we have, that we began there. So I think that in itself creates a disconnect. And that is where a lot of young persons say, oh, I don't want to hear about it. But I think if we try to get education and we try to share the knowledge, share the culture, get persons to know that, hey, we were kings and queens, we were scholars, we were mathematicians, we were doctors, we were healers before the period of enslavement, they will be, that's something good and that's something they can try to connect with because they know that they came from greatness. So in the future they can achieve greatness.
Correct.
So you see, it's either it's from the depression and it's greatness. Persons don't want to remember the depression, but they would be in a better position to hear the greatness. But where our educational system fails us, I think, most greatly, is that it gives us our history from the point of slavery. So you would find a lot of persons pushing it into the corner. So that's one of the things that I try to champion the most within Ikemba, is that our curriculum be changed to include facts from our lives before slavery.
So is that we would written. And getting straight into Crystal, and just to piggyback on what you're saying, we haven't wrote most of our history. Right? And we always say, look at the word history is his story. So whoever told it, so Crystal, what about you?
Yeah, listening to my colleagues, it brings everything into perspective. You know, we live in an anti-black society where everything is about black is bad. I remember I was raised in the ghetto, or what we say depressed community, and now somebody coming and telling me what reparations, reparatory justice, when I'm struggling to go to school, to eat. I don't want to hear about that. I want money, you know, things like that. So we need to find a way now to convey the information to our people in a way that they can understand, and a way that they can know that, hey, this is not to make you feel bad, it's to help you to understand your history, help you to know
the struggle to our success.
Yes, yes.
So to get straight into, let's go on, let's make things more light. I want to get on into a video. And for the fact that on the 8th of March, we celebrated International Women's Day. And for women, they're saying this whole month is International Women's Day. And I totally agree with that. I want to get into a small tribute video, which is done on TikTok. And, you know, it's going to give you some, it's going to recognize some powerful African women. Let's get straight into that video.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun.
If you don't stand, I'm going to have you arrested.
You may do that. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun.
Would you like to pick a new name?
Harrington. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. And I fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far, far across the river, can you hear freedom calling? Calling me to answer, gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. Prepare a place for you.
That was a beautiful tribute. You know, they looked at it, focused on some powerful African women. I just want to call a few out. Angela Yvonne Davis, who was an American political activist, philosopher, academic, and author. We had Rosa Louise McCloy Parks, was an American activist in the civil rights movement, and basically known, or most properly known, for her role in the Montgomery bus boycott. We have Harriet Tubman, was an American abolitionist and political activist born into slavery. Tubman escaped and subsequently made some 13 missions to rescue approximately 7 enslaved Africans using the Underground Railroad, and she did that at only 25. So that's just you know, we want to continue to acknowledge our African women, and you know, we don't do that good enough. I think we have to do that much more. We always hear about our African male leaders. It's important for us to put forward, highlight our African women. So let's get straight into another video, which will set the tone for the last discussion we have, which is Speak to Activism, and of course, featuring another African young woman.
We out here, let's go. Yeah,
Let them know why we here. Why we here?
We here to stop the gun violence, you already know.
Okay. Yeah. We came from all across the entire country to be here for this specific moment because I want my people to feel empowered. Live the dream.
Defend the dream.
Pledge the vote.
Pledge the vote.
Defend the dream.
Defend the dream.
Pledge the vote.
Pledge the vote.
Defend the dream.
Defend the dream.
Pledge the vote.
Pledge the vote.
Defend the dream.
Defend the dream.
Pledge the vote.
Pledge the vote.
Defend the dream.
Defend the dream.
I work with all folks who are under the age of 35. Most recently, we worked on clemency for Centoya Brown. We work on things like the Women's March, March for Our Lives, and gun violence prevention reform.
They kill us in the car, they kill us when we're traveling, and they kill us in our classroom. Yeah. This is about all the young black people that you look at right behind you right here. That's what this is about. Every black woman, every black.
In my college career, I was running for student body president at a predominantly white university, and someone hung a noose on my campus while our tuition was increasing over 80% in the span of 4 years. I chose to fight for education, I chose to fight for democracy, and I chose to fight for racial justice to make sure that my community and people coming after me didn't have to go through what I went through.
The person who's responsible for this workshop, Tiffany Lofton, she served as president of the U.S. Student Association here in Washington, and as an undergrad was also elected to leadership roles in student government at UCSC. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tiffany Lofton.
This country and our people do not take into account how serious the experience is right now for our young people who are living in a Trump era. That my students email me and they call me all the time and they're, Tiffany, so there's a building named after a white supremacist or a KKK founder. We want to change it. How do we deal with what's happening and what's going on? And our students who are amazing and intelligent, talented students still have to be civil rights leaders right now today. We grew up in a world where if you do not see people who look like you, then all you'll see is other folks who don't look like you winning the victory and succeeding. And then you'll think that you can't make it, or that can't be you. I look at Michelle Obama, I look at Fannie Lou Hamer, Issa Rae, Ava DuVernay. I look at a list of black, phenomenal, powerful women who make space where space is not given. If it weren't for women like that, we would not think that we are able to do it, that the space exists, or that it was even possible. The only advice I can have is being fully unapologetic about the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, our gender preference, to be unapologetic about it, about what we decide we're not going to stand for anymore. We don't need to be scared of the power that we have.
Is it still recording? Yes, okay, good. Okay, represent, gentlemen, represent.
Now, the point that I wanted to drive through from that video is the importance for youth advocacy, young people. You know, we have to understand that across the world, youth are the majority of today's society. We major in businesses, we major in academics, we major in almost everything. There's a young person there, even if they don't want us there. So it's very important for us as young people to continue to raise our voices with these issues. These issues are not issues only for the old folks. These issues are for people in general. And youth being the majority, is important that we have a stake in every issue. Reparations is no different. So the discussion I want to bring to everyone here tonight is the need for youth advocacy, the need for youth advocacy for reparations. How do you see us as young people transforming this movement of reparations? We know reparations is something that we born and meet, you know, this whole advocacy for reparations. And it has taken different stages. It has transformed actually. We're in the 21st century, whereby young people are rocking the boat when it comes to issues around the world. How do you see young people? How do you see our role in this movement of reparations?
I think advocacy is essentially the catalyst for change. That change can either be negative, that change can be positive. And the only way you can discern whether it will be negative or positive is to enlighten yourself. You need to get the education. Essentially, young people should try to champion the cause or advocate for reparations, because essentially we're the ones to benefit the most. We have our entire lives ahead of us. We have the most benefit. We need to repair ourselves mentally. We can gain culturally, psychologically, financially. I think that's also important. For me, advocacy would have begun from the point where we had that meeting at CARICOM, where we learned about reparations and the fight for freedom from enslavement. So I think once persons get that knowledge will grow greater and greater, and then they will eventually develop that passion, and then the passion will turn into advocacy. I think it's also important for young persons to know that they're not the only advocates for reparations. There is an entire global community.
Correct.
There's the Caribbean Reparations Commission. There's UB. There's thousands of persons across the globe that champion the cause for reparations. So it sort of gives you the sense that your life is going to be a part, you're going to be a part of something greater than yourself. And I think that in itself should motivate persons.
Very humbling point. What's your take, Shannon?
Yeah.
In the advocacy, I'm saying to young people, read. Understand what reparations would mean to you. Take it on a personal note. Don't be a bandwagonist and jump on the idea of, oh, it's reparations, it's the going trend now. Let's see where it goes. And as fast as it reaches a peak and it's no longer a heavy discussion, the trend has gone and we've forgotten. So read, understand what reparatory justice would do for you as an individual, as a young person. And then, as you said before, develop the understanding that the sacrifices our ancestors made for us to be in a position now to be able to be on a television program and have these discussions should be our biggest motivation to advocate for reparations.
I like that point. You know, you be the voice, be the voice. You know, Crystal, you could jump in right here too.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people not just to fight for reparations, but young people should endeavor to join every part of society, politically, anything that would encourage them to be better than the previous generation, you know. And our topic tonight is reparation, yes. And of course, you know, one of the things I have with advocacy as a young black female, that anytime you try to speak up, oh, you're being labeled as an aggressive person, you know, opinionated. But we need to step away from that and not just think because someone speaks up, they are aggressive. They have a voice and they have something to say. So we should step away from that. And
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
I'm glad that you made that point about we have a voice and we must speak out.
Yeah.
And being aggressive, you have to be aggressive about topics like these.
Yes.
Right? This is something that, you know, if you've taken something away from me, I'm going to be aggressive. I want it back.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't want to give me it back, because it's been years and they haven't given us it back. So we have to get more aggressive. I'm not saying we're going to get out there and be like Milton C. Swan.
But I mean, why not?
It has its place.
Not in the deep of militancy, right? But if as a young person, you should start getting upset to the point now where you want a master's, you want a PhD, you want to own your own business.
You deserve a PhD.
Exactly, you deserve it and you're going after it. And then doors are closed because you're of African descent, or doors are closed because your parents, your mother has sold enough plantain chip and fudge just to make you get up in life, and it's not enough. All right, and I know, I mean, not targeting any other river, we're speaking about Africans, yes? And the struggle continues. Every African person, it's a handful could tell you they had an easy life. It was easy for me to go to school. I got my PhD easily. These things should upset you to the point where you want to speak out without fear and not targeting another race to say they don't deserve either. But the discussion is not about them. It's about youth, young black people getting, you know, what we deserve.
And when I bring in other races, and this is something that is very, I bring in other races when the fact that I am an African man, but I'm a human being.
Yes.
Just like an Indian, just like an Amerindian, just like a Chinese. So why am I denied of certain things that other people get easily? Right? And that is a systemic thing that's been set long before our time.
Yep.
So we have to look at this. And there's another question going back to what Chris said about the voice and speaking out. Do you think you have a responsibility, besides being an advocate? I know everybody here has their own skills. Poet, public speaker we have here. We have a musician. Do you think you have a responsibility to use your voice, your gift, to help other young people see a brighter light? Not because you want them to join this movement because it's, you know, it's like politics, you know, the more numbers you get power. But for them to understand the seriousness of this and how it would affect, if you should gain reparations, how it benefits us all, economically, socially, academically, and always. Do you think you have that responsibility?
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, Kiwi, and you use the word responsibility. I would even use a stronger word, conviction, because we know persons obviously shy away from responsibility from time to time. But once you have a strong conviction, this is something you must do and something that you have to do. So I'd say that we as young black people should have a conviction to try to achieve reparations.
And to know it's possible.
Yeah.
In the first video you shared, a lot of, I think the first guy said, it may never happen. It's a talk and it may never happen. And if we can eliminate that thought and say it will happen, if not, before we reach 80,
it will happen.
It will happen.
But Shawnit, if we don't do what we're doing right about now, it will never happen. So we have to make that sacrifice. So even if we die, the people who come after us will, will enjoy that. Because, the person who said this well was Sarhi Beckles, who's actually chairman for the CRC, Caricom Reparations Commission. And he said, if you told an African enslaved man or woman that we would have been freed after going through 400 years of being enslaved, they would say you're crazy. But today we are free. If you would have told Guyanese in 18th or let's say 1950 something that we would have been an independent country, they would have said, that's crazy. The Queen owns this place. But in 1966, we were freed, May 26th. So what may look like is impossible, it is possible. Change is inevitable. It will happen. And, this discussion, of course, we wind down in time. But the importance of advocacy, if we don't speak out, who will speak out? And we have to stop allowing people who are not for our cause to speak on our issues. Our textbooks. A lot of, when you go on YouTube and you type in reparations, you see documentaries done by people who do not look like us and do not have the same interests like us. They just want a story. We have to share our story. We have that as Ikemba said, a conviction to this because it is ours, our foreparents. The reason my last name is Copeland, Beaton, Day, Crawford, is because we were enslaved. Our foreparents were enslaved. I was born in Guyana, but my foreparents didn't come from Guyana. Where in Africa I came from, I don't know. I'm totally clueless. What cultures we should have come with into Guyana, I don't know what cultures we should have come because we were stripped from it. So these are the things that are very important. And why not? Of course, I give everybody to give their final words. I was getting to a nice video. The last program we had a video from a Kenyan musician who would have compiled different songs to make an anthem. I'm now going to give you the music video that was made after he would have compiled these different songs in Africa. Let's get straight into that video.
Do it all the time. Ooh, it's the feeling for me and you. One get she.
Mi na we tujenga inchi mi na we UNITY is a motto. I don't see why kuna vita. All together everybody stand up, fist in the air kwenye hewa. 42 all as one KENYA, here we come. They cannot break us. We stand together, we stay upright. Red, black, green, kwenye moyo. Repping my team 254. Itabidi tuwe wazalendo. Kila mtu hiyo ndiyo lengo. Erase the emphasis on our differences. Everyone together, kila mtu unite.
Do it all the time. Ooh, it's a feeling for me and you. Me and me and me and me. For me and you.
Produced by Kenke Donde from Kenya. That's a very beautiful music. I know, of course, you're running down in time, but I just want, of course, to ending off this discussion. Now, we spoke about the importance of reparations. Why reparations? Why should it matter to young people? Why to some young people it doesn't matter? And of course, you speak about the importance of advocacy and how we as young people have a responsibility or a conviction to champion this particular cause. What are your final words for this whole movement of reparations? So who can give me your final words? What's your final thoughts? Or where do you see this movement in the next 5 years?
I see this movement reaching to the point where we can have cultural exchanges between persons in Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Africa, learning about the different tribes, learning about the different civilizations, which will give us a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership of our own culture, not our culture taught by somebody else. I mean, first-hand lessons are the best lessons. So I think that's where I'd like to see this movement within the next 5 to 10 years.
What about you, Shauna?
Within the next 5 to 10 years, before we look at international reparations, as in from our colonizers, I think a lot of our governments need to look into how they can also play a part in us pushing the discussions on reparations, and especially doing more for Africans. I mean, they would have given Amerindians land, they would have given some financial comfort to other races, and I believe something can be done for our African youths.
What about you, Crystal?
Yeah. Africans were the only people that died for this country. Africans were the only people that built Guyana. So for going forward, 5 to 10 years, I would like to see African people really benefiting from what we invested in. Our people were killed, you know, every time I talk about it, you get angry, you get sad. So going forward, I would like to see a scholarship being made available, readily available. You don't gotta fight nobody to get what you deserve. It should be given to you when you have the ability. And in order for us to be able to fight for reparations, we should be able, like we've been talking about it, self-repair, know who you are. And Dr. Miles Monroe said the most richest place on earth is the graveyard. And he left us with 5 questions. Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? What can you do? And where are you going? So I would like to leave that with our youth, whoever is watching it. Answer those questions, you'll be able to fight for reparations.
And that's lovely. And piggybacking from what you said, of course, you spoke about, you know, opportunities. You know, we as African people, we deserve opportunities.
Yes.
For what we have done for not only Guyana, not only Caribbean, but for the world. You know, and what our homeland, our resources have done for the world, we deserve these different opportunities. Piggybacking from what Shauna spoke about also, direct reparations. Before the international reparations, how do we get direct reparations? Thankful for Guyana, our government has all been able to still see with us, you know, they've been able to fund the reparations movement and so forth. So we're thankful for that. And going straight into what Ikemba spoke about, the cultural exchanges. It's important that we understand where the other parts of the Caribbean stand. You know, we're all fighting for the same cause, but our story is going to be different. What happened in Antigua is slightly different. What happened in Haiti is slightly different. So it's very important to piggyback on that, right? So I don't know if you want to say something, Justin?
Yeah, I just like to charge everyone, not just the young people, to learn a bit more of their culture. I think there's a book, The Guyana Reparation Story, written by Eric Phillips and Mr. Jonathan Adams.
Yes.
I think that's a good starting point. And after you would have read that book, I'm certain that it would have piqued your interest. And once your interest is piqued, you can just call Ikemba or the Guyana Reparations Committee, and we can move from there.
So it's all about... Yes, quickly.
The narrative in Guyana is that Africans made no significant contribution to the development of Guyana, and that is completely false. We have an entrepreneurial DNA. We can look at the village movement and all these things, which was very important, and we just celebrated Black History Month, and we celebrated Victoria and all these things. So I want our youth to understand that we made contributions to this country, and it is left up to us to continue that trend.
And if you cannot forget, we do have an African museum.
Yes.
Museum of African Heritage. That has all the history and everything right there.
Even the book that Ikemba speaks to.
So, of course, coming to the end of the program, you know, just one viewers to understand, this is Ikemba's Youth for Reparation television program, which is done mostly every second Thursday. We're here on Friday. And we, of course, will confirm if we'll be here on Friday or another Thursday yet again. But until then, of course, we try to keep you abreast. You can get us on our Ikemba's television program. That is Ikemba's Facebook page, of course, Ikemba. You will see, of course, the name Ikemba on the TV screen. And you can get information. You could contact us, meet us, even come down to the Museum of African Heritage if you want to get more information about our African history. But it's very important for us to understand where we lie as African people in this country, where we lie as African people across the Caribbean and across the world. And as young people, it is important that we have the conviction to fight for what is ours. Please do enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Hey.
Do it all the time. Ooh. It's the feeling for me and you. One get she. moja mi nawe tujenga inchi mi nawe